shall I sing to my Lord from my window? What shall I sing, for my Lord will not stay? What shall I sing, for my Lord will not listen? Where shall I go, for my Lord is away? Whom shall I love when the moon is arisen? Gone is my Lord, and the grave is his prison. What shall I say when my Lord comes a-calling? What shall I say when he knocks on my door? What shall I say when his feet enter softly, leaving the marks of his grave on my floor? Enter, my Lord, come from your prison, come from your grave, for the moon is arisen. Welcome, my Lord.
It was 1961, and I was acting in this classic psychological thriller, The Innocents, alongside Deborah Kerr. This was my mum's dream. She made an actor of me. She was really in love with acting, with theatre, with dance. She even left home at the age of 16 to become a dancer. So it's no surprise that by the age of 3, my twin sisters, Sally and Judy, they were enrolled in a stage school. Now, I never went to that stage school, but by the age of 2, the agency was actually offering me modeling parts. I was very young, but my mum agreed. You know, she had a great work ethic. She was a Yorkshire lady. And she said, "Martin, time to go and earn a living." 2 years old. So soon, modeling had turned into acting in my very first film, The Divided Heart. I was working with Lana Turner, Sean Connery. I was working with Stuart Granger. And this was a film that was set in the jungles of India. And I still remember the sounds and the smells of India. They were wonderful. I was working with Deborah Kerr, Rossano Brazzi, Maurice Chevalier. That was in Paris and Hollywood. For a child in the 50s, it was extraordinary. They were amazing experiences, but this was my mum's dream. She put me into it. It was bruising work schedules. I was often working 12 hours a day. You know, I wasn't just a child actor. I was also a child. I had to learn stuff. I had to go have schooling. And of course, while I was filming, I had private tutors. So even though it was great, I really did sometimes get tired. However, I'm really, really glad that I maintained my schooling, even though it was tough to keep it going, because it enabled me eventually to get to university, and I studied architecture. You know, so many of the kids, they came from stage schools, the kids that I auditioned with, that I worked with, and they nurtured the hope that they'd make it big in the business. But these stage schools, they didn't give any emphasis to education. And most of these kids nurtured the hope they'd make it big, but they never did. So they sacrificed their education, and they mostly failed as actors. And what about my dad, I hear you say? Well, I didn't really know him that well. He was a gentleman. He was very creative. He was good with his hands. And actually, I absorbed his interest in building and materials. He was a brilliant patenting scientist before the war. But after the war, he couldn't get that job. So he became an insurance salesman. Very uninspiring work. I think actually he was a disappointed man. So there I was. I was working really hard. My mum was living the dream. She was rubbing shoulders with the famous and the handsome, because she was the paid chaperone on every film I made, except for one. My dad chaperoned me on one film, and we had a wet week in Wales. And I really, really loved that time with him, having him all to myself. But most of the time I was in film studios, I was abroad filming, and my sisters were left at home with my dad. One October morning, Mum called us children into the bedroom, and she told us that Dad had died of cancer. I was 10. I sat there bewildered and dry-eyed. My sisters and my mum, they cried their eyes out. The thing is, I'd been working all the time filming, and I really don't remember him. And my mum, she actually helped erase him from our memories. She removed all photographs of him. We didn't go to the funeral, and he was rarely spoken of again. Maybe this was her way of handling the pain. And soon, within 3 weeks of my dad's death, I was starring in the iconic movie The Village of the Damned. This is really a cult movie that scares even 2 generations on. The subject matter really appealed to me because I'd been powerless at the passing of my dad, but here was a group of young children with immense mental capability, and they had power over adults. Now that was appealing. And then came the most intense experience of my childhood. I was offered the leading part in The Innocents. Once again, I was reunited with Deborah Kerr. I really loved this woman. She was a great actress and a really lovely person, genuinely so. I remember on the first day of filming, I ran down the corridor towards the dressing rooms, and I jumped into her arms. She really was a very, very good friend and helped me through this extraordinarily demanding part. The story incorporates some really controversial themes for the time. It includes innocence, corruption, and even suggested pedophilia. Remember, this is 1961. Was my extraordinary screaming scene at the end of The Innocents my one and only opportunity to express the hurt and pain that was deep inside for the cameras? Somehow this tumultuous year of my life induced 2 really intense performances in what are now really highly acclaimed films, The Innocents and The Village of the Damned. So, to be honest, although I was the greatest British juvenile actor at that time, the chances of making it as an adult are really minimal. So, suddenly I'm a schoolboy again. Here I am on the right. How did I get into this rugby team? I don't know. I did then 7 years rigorous training as an architect. I started up a housing association for homeless people, and then 4 years later, I set up my own design-build company. And you know what I did then? I joined a rock band as the lead singer. And finally, after all the self-discipline and hard work, I actually had the chance to let my hair down, literally. And of course, being a lead singer, having long hair, that leads you to have other opportunities. And amongst that, of course, I got introduced into marijuana and other drugs. And these became a really fundamental, integral part of my life for the next 6 years. And to be honest, I'm really grateful for that experience, because I was tight, controlling, and these drugs actually helped to loosen me up, made me a little bit more laid back. I got glimpses into other ways of being. And then love came into my life. And I married Denny in 1969. And this was a lady with a serious love of motorbikes. But also, she had a fascination with the workings of the mind. And very soon after we married, she went off and did 3 10-day Vipassana Meditation courses as taught by Goenka. Every time she came back home, she came back sharper, brighter, but also calmer, less agitated. So, in 1981, I sat a course with her. 10 days of complete silence, meditating 10 hours a day. A very intense experience. But I realized I experienced something of great value, a way to balance the mind throughout all the challenges of life. I was really skeptical about meditation at that time because I associated it with mysticism, gurudom, and money. But in this tradition of Vipassana, this is not the case. You go to a course, you learn the technique, you go home. You start practicing at home yourself. And when you want to, go and do another course. Every course is given freely. Every course. And at the end of the course, if you wish to donate, you can donate for the benefit of a future student. I'm really so thankful to this meditation because it actually began to show me the deep knots that were tied inside me and how it affected my relationships with others. I could see the cause and effect of so many things that had happened in my life. And less was I a slave to my own blind reactions. However, it's like turning on a radio. If you want to get a clear signal, you've got to tune that radio in. And Vipassana meditation is the tuning in. And it eradicates deep-rooted addictive behavior. And in fact, I've taken no drugs, no alcohol for more than 30 years. Now, I'm not getting any younger, and I'm a grandfather, and death of friends and family, they've come more often in my life. And even, I nearly died of pneumonia myself. But despite all these experiences, there was always balance of mind to help. Accepting the reality as it is, accepting the past as it was. This is the essence of Vipassana meditation. So, Denny and I, we've been teaching this meditation for nearly 30 years, even in a high-security jail in Barcelona. And it gives great satisfaction. We do it unpaid, it's voluntary, and I travel around the world also helping with the design of meditation centers. But curiously, recently my past has caught up with me. And I've been invited to film conventions to talk about my life and my career, sometimes alongside fellow film actors. There I am, talking about meditation, movies, marriage, and these are at scary movie genres, so it's quite strange. But the greatest gift of all is it actually encouraged me to start remembering my long-lost dad. Dad, I salute you.